Good evening and welcome.
Good
I
evening.
still want to say welcome to your phone, but I won't. Welcome to Anything of Interest, the 5th episode.
Yeah.
Interest, where we talk about, well, anything that's interesting.
I always love that at the top. Advertise here, high cost, low return on investment. I love it.
Well, yes.
It's just the epitome of what to expect in this digital world that we exist in. I'm not
Pretty
gonna
much.
lie.
One day maybe we'll have some, Fortune 500 sponsors and actually
Fortune
make a
500
difference in this world.
Every single one of which we've made fun of. So I don't know if that's going
true.
to
We
happen.
hate everybody.
We just
But anyway, welcome.
get off my lawn, you
Get off
bastards.
my lawn, you goddamn two old white guys complaining about shit.
I'm
which
busy. I'm busy decomposing over here.
which basically sums up the show. But yes, it's a lot of politics because that seems to be what is of interest.
It is the flavor right now. We got what, 2 weeks left until election? I think
Yes,
like 13,
do.
14
We
days
do.
or something like
Yeah.
that.
So probably it sounds like we're going to be talking about that again tonight. What's going on in the world?
I don't know. I think that's been exhausted. I think there's plenty of places that people can go to and look.
Well, that's true. I mean, let's get one thing straight here.
Yeah.
We don't report the news.
We make fun of it.
Complain about it and make
Yeah,
fun.
we just complain about the news because
There's
it's fun to complain
no
about.
information.
None of this information is worthwhile. It will
Nope.
not help you in the apocalypse. It will not keep zombies from knocking down your door. It
Although
will not lower your grocery bills.
we could do a how to survive the apocalypse show.
No, because I really don't want to have to survive the apocalypse. I plan on fitting in by becoming a zombie, like Bill Murray in Zombieland. I'm just gonna put on the makeup, gonna do the Walking Dead thing where you cover yourself in blood and guts of a corpse. And I'm just gonna be out there. I mean, if you really think about the way people behave at the supermarkets and grocery stores,
I was just gonna say.
I mean, we're kind of already zombified.
Country is already there.
We're zombies with a pulse, as they say.
Oh, and guess which half?
It's all that saltpeter they put in the food, man. It's all that saltpeter.
What's interesting? What are we talking about tonight?
I've been watching a lot of stuff about the two back-to-back hurricanes we've had recently. And it's a very interesting story when you look at it from the YouTube perspective, the influencer space, right? People with YouTube platforms.
Once upon a time, there was a large storm.
Yeah, there's that too.
It's a story, so go ahead. Sorry.
But it's interesting because I'm trying to keep an open mind about some of the conversations that have been going on about these two particular storms.
Oh God, here we go.
See, the narrative has been.
I know where this is going to go.
Well, Hurricane Helene, which occurred in the southeast, was a very large storm that did more flood damage than wind damage. Watching either mainstream media or alternative media, you'll be getting all these imageries and all of these things that go on. I don't have the ability to run a charity of any sort, but I will say that if you go out into the social space, there are plenty of charities out there, but just make sure you pick one that makes sense, that you can trust, and one that will actually help people. Like, there's corporate charities that could be a whole different show that I would always be very mindful of before you convince yourself to give to those charities. But do your research, go online, figure out who's in need out there in the Southeast, and find those places, because
you could donate your money to FEMA.
You already do through taxes. So I
donate more.
Well, you could if you wanted to. It's perfectly acceptable.
That was a thinly veiled barb at what's going on down there.
Well, I mean, and here's the problem. There's already been some pretty gross shit done by Trump.
And that's why,
super gross. Super gross.
And that's why, it's tough because every topical discussion these days boils down to the same thing, which is a political discussion. Yeah, pretty much.
But his arrival there wasn't even it didn't even feel political to me. It felt just gross. Like it felt.
So here's the thing, though. Before I take it down that route, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So go.
Well, but you did.
I know I did.
So you obviously meant to.
I did. Again,
you said I didn't mean
veiled remorse for interrupting. So my apologies, my friend. So go back to, before I derail it to that end.
Right.
Go back to what you were saying. So
yeah, I was looking at it from a different
I agree.
perspective.
If you, I mean, there are a lot of people that need help. So yes, if your intention is to donate, I agree. Find a reputable source, and by all means, help.
Being located in Southern California, I'm very mindful about behavior of the average citizen when disasters strike. Whether it's the floods of Texas or the Gulf or Florida or the Southeast or even the Northeast, right? I know at some point California will have a major earthquake, and it'll be our turn in the spotlight.
Well, I mean, it's not like you can't. I mean, you guys deal with all kinds of shit. The fucking state's been on fire for like 6 years.
Yeah, but that's where I want to touch into. Like, fires we can plan for. Like, we know the season, we know the problem. We've instituted power outage plans for high wind areas, which saved a lot of potential damage this week up in Northern California, where they're having a lot of high fire risks. So one of the things that came out of the Paradise Fire and a lot of these other major events that we have in California was making making certain institutions responsible and mandating their behavior.
You know what I just realized? I'm going to interrupt you again. This time, you know what I just realized? And again, I mean, you and I are pretty grounded individuals. Obviously, we have our views. For those
we try to be.
Those of you who have seen this before, obviously we lean left. That's a whole nother conversation. Less so than I used to. Okay? Okay, but we try not to subscribe too much to conspiracy theory, because that is basically the ill of almost everything lately. But it just occurred to me when you said that. I try to be pretty in tune with what's going on in California, because California I consider my second home. All right.
Yeah.
I have not heard much, if anything, about the fires that you guys are having out there lately.
Yeah, well, they haven't been as bad. They haven't been as intense.
I understand that. And
we had a very short window of fires this year, where we had 3 major fires going on in Southern California, and there were some major fires going up in Northern. But once again, it becomes kind of rote. We know the season comes. We know the limitations.
So then it is not fair for me to say, could that be by design, that all they're doing is talking about the Southeast, since those are battleground voting states, and not focusing on...
No, because our catastrophes don't even come close to what the Southeast is going through right
Fair enough.
I mean,
like I said, I just wanted to pose the question,
the fear factor of what happened down there is the relevance of climate change. And for people that don't want to come to that conclusion, they're already saying things like, well, the liberals seeded the clouds and that's why the rain was so bad. Or if you listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene, we're in control of all the weather of the world, right? So I think the problem is this was an actual geological event for the Southeast. There are entire rivers that changed course.
Geological event as opposed to a man-made event?
Well, I mean, even from a normal flood perspective, people would be hard pressed to say, "Oh, it's a bad flood. It's a 1,000-year flood." Well, you could call it whatever you want, but the drone footage and the footage of these rivers,
absolutely.
they are no longer rivers that are going the direction they used to go in. They are now new rivers going in new directions. So
what's the end? Where are you going with this? What's your point?
This, as much as I want to have empathy, well, I do have empathy for the people that suffer, but they're suffering because of bad planning.
Okay, so we are on the same page.
Right. The conservative nature of the governorships of these states are very anti-federal. In fact, they support Project 2025, which specifically dictates a reduction in FEMA federal spending. Watching the different conservative YouTube channels, Why are only God-fearing Christians helping out people? I've been up here, guys, and I don't see FEMA. Well, it's a town
because armed militia have fucking chased them out.
Well, even that's blown out of proportion. It is completely blown out of proportion. Okay. The reality is FEMA prioritizes the work based on the most amount of suffering. So like a city like Asheville with a population of like 15, 20, 30,000 people.
Yeah.
That's a huge effort that FEMA is going to focus on.
Yeah.
If you're a town of 50 people, like 100 miles up in the Appalachia Ridge, you're going to have to wait. There is no infrastructure. There is no ability to shift dynamically.
But see, here's where I'm gonna.
But those are the places that get all the airtime because FEMA is not going to interfere with private citizens helping those small locations because FEMA is relying on those folks to do that. They know that they're going to be better at it. They know that they're more in tune with those locations, those peoples, those families.
Sure. Yeah.
And those people that are doing the good work are complaining that FEMA's not helping. Guess what? FEMA not stopping you is actually helping. And all the money that those dumb assholes are spending to do all that work can be recovered through FEMA. A simple go to the website, fill out the form, and you do just a little bit of your paperwork.
Yeah, but
and all that.
It's been more than just where is FEMA? It is actually
they're stealing our stuff. They're stealing our land. Yeah.
So I have seen interviews with FEMA workers and first responders who have said we have had to move locations due to safety concerns.
Yes.
So this goes way beyond using this, which in and of itself, using something like this as a political tool is disgusting. Okay?
And I'll tell you what.
And up until now, we have never done that as a country. Okay.
A lot of those critical YouTube platforms that we're talking about this, there are a whole lot of white faces in those videos. I know the Southeast is a very integrated, multicultural region.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But boy, let me tell you, there were a whole lot of white faces getting help from a whole lot of other white folk.
Yeah, well,
and I think there's a reason for that.
I'm not even going to comment on that because we all know the fucking reason for that.
Yeah.
It's called fucking racism.
But I'm very nascent and mindful of the fact that had this tragedy occurred in a non-election cycle, I wonder how different it would have felt.
Well, and that is my point. Like I said, to use a natural disaster like this as a political tool in and of itself is shameful and disgusting. Okay, because you are not only are you using people's lives as pawns on a chessboard, which let's face it, our political system basically is during election cycles.
Absolutely.
But you're using people at their lowest. Okay, so. But this goes so far beyond just using it as a political tool when they have been spewing such utter fucking garbage like we control the weather and FEMA is out to steal your shit. And it is beyond the pale. I mean, there's just no fucking words for it left. And I'm so conflicted because like you said, any semi-intelligent person who has a slightest drop of empathy is going to feel bad for people in this situation, no matter what their background is. It's human suffering, and you should feel that.
Yeah,
if you can't feel that, then you're fucking empty inside, and you are a MAGA Republican.
Yeah, okay? Pretty much.
But like I said, it goes so far beyond, and I'm conflicted because my inner conflict basically ends up where it ends up, and I hate that it does, but where it ends up is you people are so fucking stupid that you fall for this. How fucking stupid do you have to be to believe that the earth is flat and people can control the weather? That is beyond the point where It should be believable no matter who you fucking hear it from.
Yeah.
So, like I said, and again, because I'm a rational person mostly with still human empathy, I hate that I feel this way, but I have been forced into this by, call it whoever you want, call it the media or the MAGA party, because this is what they do. It's not the media. The media only spins it so far, and they do spin it. But like I said, where my head goes is, you fucking people, this is exactly what you are voting against, and you're fucking idiots. You don't even know that you're being taken advantage of. This is the perfect petri dish of you suffering for the people that you are electing, right? You being put in the position of this horrible position you're being put in. And I'm sorry, I'm not being very eloquent because it really fucking bothers me.
Yeah.
Like I said, it basically comes down to, you're a fucking idiot for backing these people because they don't give a shit about you, to the point where not only are you in this horrible situation, but it's exponentially worse because of the people that you still fucking stand behind.
Yeah. And what I also found interesting about this particular series of storms, you had Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, and you have other potential hurricanes. You've got one that's causing problems in the Turks and Caicos. There's tropical depressions forming.
Well, I think Oscar is next, which is my son's name. So Oscar, my son.
Oscar is looking to be a potentially difficult one as well, which is led to the technology side of the advancement of all of this. And this is where I got frustrated with the idea of preparation for these upcoming storms in the Southeast. The Milton storm wasn't nearly as catastrophic, not because it wasn't powerful or dangerous, but because 3 million people got out of its way.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't talk about that success because you can't sell peanut butter, chewing gum, and Tide on the mass media scale without tragedy. So the whole Milton conversation is like, it just wasn't that bad of a storm. No, it was a bad storm, guys. The people that would normally make up your news feed just got out of the way.
Yeah.
The system worked. These incredibly impressive storm models, these incredibly impressive technologies, satellites, and people spending countless hours going over these models, warning people for up to 7 to 10 days before Milton even became a threat. There were models and news stories, or I should say information awareness. I don't even call meteorology news because it's informational awareness that was pouring out of this technology and out of these educated people, right? And what do these fucking DeSantis pieces of shit in Florida do? They threaten the lives of meteorologists.
That's my point.
I get your point, but what I'm saying is it goes even deeper than your point.
Yeah.
People have hit a wall that says, I don't know how to coexist with other human beings unless I'm hating.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to do with MAGA anymore. We have descended into the mire of being successfully brainwashed to a certain degree on the left and on the right, where truth doesn't matter, science doesn't matter, data doesn't matter. I cannot function unless I hate.
Yes. Well, I agree with you 100%.
And that's the success of the Putin disinformation machine.
Yeah.
That's the success of all of these really bad players, these really bad actors outside of our borders, taking advantage of our idiocy and funneling into the social media spectrum the Pavlov's dog, spoon-fed hate rhetoric that they know these modern Americans who are obese, mentally unhealthy, miserable, the great, Reagan promise didn't come through, the disease of nostalgia has firmly set in, and our country is at its weakest point, not because of Democrats and Republicans, not because of COVID, not because of all the other things going on around us. we are at our weakest point in this country because we've forgotten how to unite with each other. And the vitriol of hate has become more important to a segment of our society than the idea, to your point, which is practicing empathy.
Right. And no argument for me.
But the technology, oh my God, the technology was amazing with the storms this time around.
Right. And here's the thing. And you know, if you look, part of the problem, and I don't know if this is a chicken or the egg thing, and I'm sure you have an opinion and I'd like to hear it. Part of the problem with the fact that everybody immediately just, all we can do is hate each other. And if you think differently from me, then you're a fucking idiot and yada, yada, yada. And that's extremism, like you said, on both sides. The whole woke thing, I don't even want to go there because that just drove me fucking insane.
That's a fabrication. It's not even real. It's just a cultural expression that haters just needed to simplify what they do.
No, I know, but I'm saying, okay, forget the word woke. The whole ultra, that whole fucking thing was as extreme on the left as the shit, maybe not as, but close as
in its presentation of what they believe.
It was absolutely poison, and I'm glad that fucking died in its cradle early. But so the aspect that I'm not sure whether it's chicken or the egg is, we have also lost the ability, and again, if this may be what has caused everybody to hate, or that may have been the predicate for the fact that we've lost the ability to have a rational discussion about anything. You can't.
Well, that's a symptom of the disinformation, right? That's just a symptom of the problem.
Right. Okay. So we can't discuss a topic like you and I do here and have, you know, it's the mindset is, if you're not for a thing, you're against a thing.
Correct.
And vice versa. There's no gray.
And a lot of that is coming out of this new rise in Christian nationalism. You know, this false narrative about us actually being.
Did you see that bullshit at the Capitol the other day?
Which one? I mean, it's a huge line of bullshit.
There was a huge fucking march gathering of this ultra Christian nationalist. Like, I mean, it's like fucking Winston. It's like Salem, Massachusetts from, 1689. It's fucking insane. We're literally going to start burning witches at the stake again. That's where.
Yeah. I was listening to a really interesting story on NPR today about this young man who was not in the church in the 90s, got attracted to it by his girlfriend. He was in the church for quite a while. He loved it. He enjoyed it, had a great time. But as he got older, he began to question this kind of nationalism, this identity that if you're not American, then you're not Christian. It's one thing to say your religion is different. But what he was discovering was this group, this Christian group that he was a part of, was looking outside of the borders of the country and going, you know, if you're not Christian like us, you're simply not American. And he was like, wait a minute, that's not actually how religion works.
Yeah, well,
so in his adult years, he became...
That fucking happened once, and the Inquisition. That fucking happened already.
Exactly. And I think when a society descends into this constant state of fear, it's easy to turn towards the God narrative. It's easy to turn towards, I will invite anyone out there, if you ever want to watch the epitome of the most racist thing ever, watch that film, Birth of a Nation. And that will let you know what these Christian nationalists feel. Jesus is white. Everybody in America is white. And every white American is Christian. It's what they feel. I love
how there was one white guy 2,000 years ago walking around.
Exactly, like the perfect metrosexual European with perfect white skin, saving all the colored folk of the Middle East, right?
I don't want to get into a discussion. I obviously have my views of religion. I'm not going to get into a discussion of religion, but per se at its base level. But shit, where was I going before? Now, see, you interrupted me this time. It was about having the discussions not being able to have a rational discussion with anybody.
Oh yeah.
Immediately, like,
I described it more of a symptom than a cause.
And that's fair. I honestly don't know in my head. Oh, I know where it was going, because you said this is part of the Russian misinformation machine, and that, again, we're kind of breaching, the whole conspiracy theory thing. Although it's really,
well, there's plenty of evidence of what they've done.
I know,
so I'm not too worried about that.
But I still put it on us as a society, because our leaders, our public leaders, are supposed to be smarter than that, and they're supposed to be better. And they too easily fell under the spell of this piece of shit douchebag, fucking modern Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
Who he just needs to not be part of the picture anymore. He's been living in our heads rent free. I mean, it's like a terrorist. They've always said, don't negotiate with terrorists, and what they want is airtime, basically.
Yeah.
You've given him nothing but airtime for like.
And we've been negotiating with him ever since.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, right. Yeah. So you can say, all of the external influence, that's all well and good. I'm not arguing that it's not there, but I'm sorry, we cannot blame like the rest of the world for our utter fucking stupidity, of arriving where we're at. And the fact that this election is still so close, Jesus fucking Christ, what the hell? Literally,
I know.
What the fucking hell has to happen anymore for somebody to wake up and say, this is an absolute clown show joke? This guy's a fucking joke. Okay. Yep. Not even in the same species as his opponent. And yet we're still a point off either way. It's like, seriously? I mean, this, I hate to say it, and the more I talk about this, the more ornery I get and the more pessimistic I get. And I don't want to see it happen, because it affects me and all of us who still have a brain.
Yeah.
We fucking, at this point, we fucking deserve whatever the fuck we get, because this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We are on the point of tragically stupid. I don't care what your background is, what your upbringing is, what your education is. There has got to be a rock bottom level. Exactly. There has got to be a rock bottom level of, wait, here, let me do the, I got to do the, if you're going to use the effect. Oh, my fucking Stream Deck is not working. Never mind. Brand cam. Anyway, there has got to be a rock bottom level. I truly believe that as a functioning human being who is still able to breathe and shovel food into their fat mouths, there's got to be a point at which you say, okay, enough is enough. This is beyond the bottom level of cognizance, right? I mean,
a lot can happen in a year.
I'm sorry. I think that
I'll close it out by saying this, because we're coming up on a half hour.
Jason, I was in a good mood today, and now I'm all fired up.
I had a wonderful experience last night watching a movie. It came out in 2015. It was called Pixels. It was the actor Paul Blart, Mall Cop, Adam Sandler, and a bunch of other cameos. The Bean was in there. The short little guy from Game of Thrones. I always get his actor name wrong, and I apologize.
Peter Dinklage.
Dinklage. The Dingle was in it.
Dinklage, not Dinglage.
The Dinglage was in it. It was
Lannister.
It was the very first time I was briefly touched by nostalgia, because a whole lot of emotions came in at the same time.
It's like the Grinch, Jason, who hates nostalgia. His heart grew 3 sizes.
It grew from 3 centimeters to 9 centimeters.
He had a milkshake.
The movie is about these kids who grow up in the 80s playing video games. And it was all the cool video games. Cuber.
I don't remember that movie.
You got to watch it. It's an absolute fucking fun movie to watch.
Oh, yeah, I do. Okay.
It's completely silly, which
I didn't see it.
More It makes it even more endearing.
So it's worth a watch.
Yeah, especially right now.
Okay.
Because, you know, as they grow up, they have to face the reality of being adults. And the one guy who was going to be this super smart MIT guy ends up being the slacker who goes on to just work for, a nerd company to install radios and TVs and whatnot. While the other one, who is kind of the loser friend, is now the president of the United States. But they're still friends, right?
Okay.
Well, when they were competing for the game, the whole time capsule thing was that the teacher of the school, played by Dan Aykroyd, took a VHS recording of the video game competition from the 80s and sent it to outer space, hoping that, aliens in the near future or whatever would discover it. Well, they do, and they misinterpret it as a threat. And they're like, they come back, they use old 80s shows to communicate with us. They use old 80s video games to make war against us. And it's just...
Oh my God. All right. Now I got to watch.
At the end of the movie, you just get this warm, fuzzy feeling, and you're like, oh, why did this movie make me feel so great? Oh, that's right. This movie came out in 2015, before the great decline of 2016.
Yeah.
And the eventual where we are now. I had a direct connection to a happier moment of time that wasn't necessarily meant to be nostalgic, but it just felt good.
That is nostalgia.
No, nostalgia is when you over-obsess.
It's not
about it.
No, it's not.
Nostalgia is a disease.
Oh, please.
Most people that are nostalgic for something don't really like change, and they prefer it to stay the same way.
Why is that a disease?
It was classified as a disease in the 60s. It was, if you look it up, it was classified as a disease in the 60s to describe a certain segment of society that wanted the American society to remain rooted in the 50s.
Okay.
And that's actually where the term came from, nostalgic for a period of time, the idea of nostalgia. And it kind of found traction during that period of time. Well, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to the 80s. I'm not interested in the 80s from a standpoint of reliving them. I find aspects of the 80s fun to consume for the purposes of my own feelings.
Well,
but I like my cell phone. I like computers.
Well, so
I like modern things.
It's unfair to say that everybody who has a sense of nostalgia takes it to the point where they want to time travel back to that point. I think it's okay.
There's at least 50 million Americans that are very nostalgic for Trump.
Okay, well, I was going there.
That's a lot of fucking people.
I was going there, but, somebody can also say, man, that the 80s, there was an aspect of it that was cool. That's nostalgia. But I still want my Vision Pro from Apple, I mean...
You know what, Brian? You know what we did today?
But we got 50. But you're right. We have 50 million people who suffer from terminal nostalgia.
Well, everyone, thank you for sharing your 30 minutes with our nonsense. We appreciate it.
So you want to wrap this up?
I got to.
Is there any message tonight? We at least try.
I think the main message is that when disasters strike, take the time to look through the different narratives that you're consuming. And realize that local people are having local problems and local sufferings. Right. Disasters are going to continue to happen. Yeah. We've all seen the models. We've all been warned. If you're a governor of a state, if you're in a leadership position, use the science and technology that you're being presented with to start making plans now. Because this Milton, Helene, and other hurricane season could end up becoming every other year. And when that starts happening, you're going to find that the places that you live are going to physically change permanently. Yeah. Flood basins and river valleys and mountainscapes and landslides.
Asheville was in the mountains and it flooded. Wrap your head around that.
Well, not only did it flood, but the entire city was washed away.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of warnings. There were plenty of models. There were plenty of, but people were convinced that it wasn't going to happen. It's never happened before. And why should it happen now?
Yeah, and to expand.
And they waited too late. They waited too late.
To expand on that, you're right. That is an opportunity. Nobody can control the weather, no matter what. I can't even believe I have to say this. No matter what anybody fucking tells you, it's impossible.
Yes.
But put your, getting back to empathy, put yourself in those people's shoes, like literally.
Practice
think
it.
about your house, everything you owned was gone, leveled. Think about that.
Me and the wife watched an interview with a man who was in his late 40s, maybe.
Yeah.
All 11 members of his family, cousins, uncles, aunts, and his elderly parents died in the flood. All of them. And there he was having a very honest reflection. And the most influential thing out of his mouth when I was getting interviewed was, I'm not going to rebuild here. There's no reason to. Mm-hmm. I feel no compelling need to rebuild here. The memories are too difficult. We're going to let the land come back to its natural state. Maybe have a couple picnic benches here to come and remember all the people we lost, but I don't need to rebuild here. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a genuine, empathetic honesty to the situation that man was in.
Yeah.
And it got virtually no airtime. Like, it didn't go viral. It didn't.
Because
it's not going to sell shit. It's not going to gain you follows.
It doesn't sell.
Exactly.
But if more people could think about that, and not just think about how the other person feels, but really stop and think. Put down your phone, sit in a quiet room, and really stop and think what it would be like if you were in that situation. And like you said, for somebody having that problem, the rest of the problems of the world, of the country and the world, don't matter that day. All right. Because you are literally thinking, where am I going to get a clean jug of water? Okay.
Yeah.
And if more people were able to really, truly exercise empathy, and there's a trick to it, to truly do it, is not just, I understand how that person feels, but really picture yourself in that situation, then maybe people can start realizing that all of these outside forces are just manipulating you into not being able to do that anymore for their own purposes. So I guess.
All right, Brian, next Sunday,
that's
do
the
it again.
Yeah. All right. I'll let you go
Sunday.
Do whatever you need to do because you don't have any empathy for me wanting to sit here and continue complaining.
Get off my lawn, motherfucker.
Get off my lawn. All right. Yes. Find us, on YouTube. Anything of interest.
Yeah. Gen X Geezer does not exist in the social media, so don't bother looking for me. But
just look up anything of interest _BWJB or on Threads or Instagram, anything.of.
Yeah. You can find all of our pearls of wisdom out there that just remind you of how absolutely stupid
if you think they're worth anything, great. If not, that's your opinion, but your opinion's wrong. So
mine's right, his wrong. Good night, everybody.
We will see you next week.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.